Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Fall Jersey. Joe Archino back here. And obviously, there's a lot of excitement around the college football universe, as there should be, with all of the rankings out now. And of course, the national championship picture looking a little bit more clear. But I think one of the conversations that people keep on trying to push and want to have after the College Football Playoff Committee release their final rankings is, do we need to expand? Should there be expansion in the college football playoff? And I don't know how many people will agree with me, but I don't think that there is any need to expand. And I will give the committee a lot of credit. I don't think their job is very easy. Someone is always going to be disagree and be unhappy, but I think largely these first 3 years they have been asked to pick the 4 best teams and to put them in the correct spots, and they have done that to me unequivocally across the board these last 3 years. This year especially was not easy because of Penn State's late push, but I think that they made the correct decisions like they have done so the last 3 years. But back to the original question. Should there be expansion? Should they expand it beyond on 4 teams? Most likely it would either be to 6 or to 8. And I just am not a fan of either one. And I went back and I looked at basically what the implications were these last 3 years surrounding them. Obviously, this year, 1 through 4, you have Alabama at 1, Clemson at 2, Ohio State at 3, Washington at 4. To me, those are the undisputed top 4 teams in college football. Maybe Michigan you could have made an argument for, but largely, those are the 4 best teams. And beyond that, look, Penn State, a great late push. 2 losses on the year, one of them to a decent Pittsburgh team. One of them was a loss where, to put it like the committee did, they were not competitive at all. They got crushed by Michigan. Right behind them is Michigan at 6. I do think you might have been able to make an argument for Michigan. But beyond that, it's Oklahoma, it's Wisconsin. So I look at those other 4 teams, and let's ask this question. Are you really going to miss out if Oklahoma isn't in the playoff? Are you really going to miss out if Wisconsin wasn't in the playoff? You have the best 4 teams, and beyond that, it's just oversaturating what's already a great product. We go back to 2015. Number 1, you had Clemson, 13-0, perfect year. Alabama right behind them, 12-1. Michigan State behind them at 12-1, and Oklahoma behind them at number 4. Now, obviously, Michigan State was very lucky last year to get their late push where they beat Ohio State. Ohio State, it looked like they were a surefire bet to repeat as national champions. I mean, you remember that team? It was loaded. You had Ezekiel Elliott, who's tearing it up in the NFL right now. You had Joey Bosa, who's had a tremendous year for the San Diego Chargers after a very weird holdout before the season started. So much talent on that team. 2 quarterbacks who could be starting for any program in the country, which they were rotating between. And Ohio State lost that game, which kind of unworld everything. But after that, you have Iowa at 5, who was at 12-1, the ultimate pretender. Beyond that, Stanford at 11-2. Ohio State dropped to 11-1 at number 7, and Notre Dame was at 8 at 10-2. But again, I'll say the same thing. Are you really missing out if you can't get an Iowa into there? Is Iowa really one of the best teams in the country? Is a 2-loss Stanford team or a 2-loss Notre Dame team really one of the best teams on the same page with those top 4? They just aren't. And I think a large reason because of why we have this top 4 is it eliminates anyone who's truly not one of the top 4 teams. This year, there is such a supreme drop off between the top 4 teams and everyone else that it's scary. Last year, maybe not as noticeable, but this year, it is a scary distinction. You look at Louisville, people were all in on them for a while. They unraveled completely towards the end of the season. The consistency is in the top 4 teams' corner all year, and that's why they end up where they are. There might be a bump along the way, but largely they are consistent through and through, and it's why they are there. And I just don't like oversaturating what is already a good product with putting an Iowa in there, who, let's be honest, I don't care. I don't need an Iowa to be in there to be happy. I've got the four best teams in college football. I don't need any more. And then again, just to kind of give further substance to my argument, I'll go and I'll give you the initial inaugural season of the college football playoff. Number 1, you had Alabama. Number 2, you had Oregon. Number 3, you had a 13-0 FSU team. And again, remember why they were there at number 3. They were 13-0, but it wasn't convincing. FSU didn't play anybody great on their schedule that year. Yeah, they played a Clemson team that was pretty good. Not a Deshaun Watson. He was not the starter there at that time. And I think largely the committee showed you that not all wins are created equal when they placed FSU at number 3. And then number 4, you had Ohio State, which did have a loss on their schedule, and a lot of people thought it wasn't a good loss against Virginia Tech, but it was very, very early in their schedule. JT Barrett was one of his first games, and after that, they really showed themselves to be a powerhouse, and they went on to win the national championship against Oregon. But after them, it was number 5 Baylor, number 6 TCU, number 7 Mississippi State, and number 8 Michigan State. Baylor and TCU both had great years in the Big Ten, and in the Big 12, but I don't think largely, again, you're not missing out that much without having them in there. Largely, you can go up and down the top 4 the past 3 years and say unequivocally those have been the best teams in college football, and there's been a dramatic drop-off after that. And there just is. And again, I don't think there's a need for it. Would it be exciting? It might be. But would it change anything dramatically? Would it defeat the purpose of what the committee's job is? The committee's job is to get the 4 best teams into the playoff, and they have done that these last 3 years. And I think it's like the rumors a couple years ago of the NFL expanding the playoffs. Why? I mean, you have in that the wild cards in there for a reason. Adding another one into the mix, why? So a team that's just hanging on by a thread could get in there. I mean, again, will it add excitement? Maybe you get another game out of it, but I'm totally okay with what we have. I think what we have works. The rest of the teams get good bowl games. You have the best 4 teams in the country playing out for the national championship. And again, if there wasn't that dramatic drop-off, I would tell you maybe it's a more worthwhile conversation to have. But there just is a dramatic drop-off between them and everyone else. And because of that, I don't think that there's a need for expansion now or in the future. But we will just have to wait and see how this one plays out, certainly. Until the next time, Jersey Joe Archino here with the Sports Vault. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino. And I'll catch everybody in the next episode.